dive deeper into putting a bill together to resolve some of these issues, and that's why I would ask for your support to withdraw this motion, or to withdraw this bill.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Seeing no others wishing to speak, Senator Wayne, you're welcome to close. Senator Wayne waives closing. The question before us is the withdrawal of LB 659. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Have all voted that wish to? Record, Mr. Clerk.
39 ayes, no nays, Mr. President, on the motion to withdraw the bill.
The motion to withdraw LB 659 is adopted. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, Senator Hilgers would move to renew his motion to adopt permanent rules. The next amendment to that motion, Mr. President, the body considered amendments 1 and 4 yesterday. Copies, again, are in hard copy available on your desk. If you need an additional copy, please have a page come up front. We have those. Senator Shoemaker is Vice Chair. I understand, Senator, you're going to offer what I believe is proposal rule number 3. Okay. Mr. President, Senator Shoemaker as Vice Chair of the committee would offer proposed Rules Committee Amendment number 3.
Senator Shoemaker, you're welcome to open on rule change number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Rule change number 3 deals with interim fiscal notes. It was brought to the committee by Senator Har, and I yield the balance of my time to Senator Har for purposes of its introduction.
Senator Har, you are recognized with 9 minutes and 43 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the body, this, as I like to say, is a simple rule change. All we are doing is formalizing what you can already do. During the interim, if you have an idea for a piece of legislation, the fiscal office is more than willing to work with you. It's a great office. I want to be very clear that this is not an attack on the fiscal office or the people there. They do a great job, and they're great people. What this does do is we now have elevated fiscal notes to a higher point than it ever has been before. If you look at the governor's proposed budget, I think he leaves like $6 million for the floor. I think we're going to be hard-pressed to even have that much. My freshman year, if a bill had a fiscal note, it died. Just don't even bother to introduce it. And while the Appropriations Committee spends billions upon billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars, the most I've ever had in my now 7 years looks to be $26 million for the floor. So that means 9 senators appropriate a large portion. They leave that small, I'll call it a bone for the rest of us. And I will tell you right now, I will fight like a dog to gnaw on that bone. And I will make sure that I get my bill that I want, and I'm going to make sure that you get your bill that you want. So I'm going to make that fiscal note as small as possible. And in my 6 years, I've learned tricks on how to do that I may or may not tell you. But there are ways to do it. But there are also, what you will hear in committee is, I don't agree with that fiscal note, I'm going to talk to the fiscal office. And if your bill has a fiscal note now, folks, just don't waste our time. Don't introduce it. Right? I don't want that to be the mentality, but I'm worried about that. So what this bill does is says, if you have an idea you're working on now, you're working on over the interim, go to bill drafters, have the bill drafted. And what you can do is then submit that to the fiscal office, and they will give you a fiscal note, right? Now, That fiscal note will show you maybe you made a mistake. Maybe there was an assumption that you made that, well, that's not what I meant, and that has a huge fiscal cost. I got to change that. But what you're doing is you're saving our time. Well, first you're saving your time, right? Because you're introducing a better bill because you now know what the fiscal note is. Maybe you abandon the idea, maybe you amend the idea, or maybe you clarify the idea. It's a one-time shot. You get to really issue spot what is the cost of your bill and what are the problems and weaknesses. Because the last thing you want to be doing is working on a bill from the time we get out, you introduced it last week, and you may not know the fiscal note until March or how much it costs. And in the meantime, you're doing a whole bunch of work. You're calling constituents, you're calling advocacy groups, you're working with advocacy groups both for and against your bill. You're trying to figure out how I can get this bill out of committee, you're working committee members. And then you find out, oh, oops, there's a fiscal note. It's not going anywhere. It's a waste of our time. It's a waste of your time. It's an inefficient use. I want to find a way to make government more efficient. I believe in knowledge is power. So what this does is it gives you the ability to issue spot to see what the fiscal note is of your bill. And hopefully avoid the death by fiscal note. And to, if you do, also be able to work people and say, well, I did an interim fiscal note, here's what it's going to be cost. And you can, when you're working with members of a committee, you can say, here's the cost. Here's what it's going to be. Instead of waiting until after the committee hearing. It's just for planning. So that is the extent of it. Like I said, it's very simple. I'd be more than willing to entertain any questions and or concerns you may have. With one more caveat I will add. There is a concern that was brought up in committee, in Rules Committee, that, hey, there'll be an avalanche. Everyone will enter their bills and there'll be an avalanche of fiscal notes. Maybe there will be. But we're spending billions of dollars, folks. Maybe we should plan ahead a little bit. Maybe we should know what something costs. And I will tell you, my basic knowledge of physics tells me that an avalanche can only occur if there's pent-up pressure. If there's no pent-up pressure and no one worries about it, we don't have a problem. By the way, you are already able to do this if you want right now. All I'm doing is formalizing and to a certain degree limiting what we as senators can do. Because now you can do as many as you want. Now they have to give you one, but they don't have to give you more than one. If you have a fiscal note and you say, oh, okay, I see that problem, I'm going to tweak it and send it back in, fiscal office can tell you to pound sand. You had your one shot. So in a way, this relieves them of work as well. So it gives each senator one, and it gives each committee chair one. And we had some debate as to whether that should be an individual chair gets to decide at their